welcome. Tonight, we have a terrifying doll story. As a reminder, these stories are written exclusively for this channel. So, if you would like to support these creative endeavors, please hit that like and subscribe. But for now, let's get into it. When I was little, my grandparents purchased me an expensive doll, who I named Samantha. She came with all kinds of clothes for different occasions and a card that said best friends forever. I spent hours combing her long dark hair, identical to my own, and often gave us the same hairstyle. I'd carry her around everywhere and would talk to her late into the night about my childish secrets. But then one day, my older brother took Samantha. I was only 10 years old, while he was a pale-skinned 14-year-old with a bowl cut and freckles. On this beautiful Saturday in the summer, I had just gotten back from riding my bike with my friend Lisa around the neighborhood. As I approached my house, I smelled this awful burning scent. Together, Lisa and I dropped our bikes on the grass out front and followed the scent to the backyard. There, to my horror, was my brother, holding a flame to Samantha's face. Half her long, beautiful hair was burned off already, while the plastic of her cheek melted. I screamed and ran over to her, but my brother held her above my head, taunting me with her. I changed tactics and scratched at his shirt, but that did nothing, so I kicked him between the legs. He immediately dropped the doll and fell to the grass. I scooped her up, running a finger along her melted face and flinching at the remaining heat. My little body vibrated with rage. Lisa had hung back towards the edge of our yard during all of this, but she stepped forward when she saw I had my doll and hugged me. It's sad Samantha's ugly now," Lisa said. "She's not ugly," I replied, holding Samantha to my chest and whispering consoling words to her, while I gave Lisa a dirty look. As she ran off, I spotted my parents coming out the back door of the house towards us. My parents punished my brother, not for sadistically torturing his sister's precious doll, but for playing with fire. They forced me to apologize, through gritted teeth, for hitting my brother. He didn't have to apologize for hurting my doll. My parents offered to get me a new doll. Wouldn't it be cool to have the latest doll? Maybe one that cried or talked, one that didn't have a melted face, they asked me. To me, it felt like they were trying to replace a family member with something bright and shiny. I kept Samantha close to me for a long time, still combing what remained of her hair so that it looked like my own. I worried my parents would try to throw her away when I wasn't looking. But as I grew up, I kept Samantha around as she went from sleeping with me in my bed to sitting on a display shelf to being stored in the closet. By the time I moved off to college in a different state, Samantha, the doll I had once cared for like a best friend, was a distant memory. On my first day in the dorm, I dropped my backpack on my bed, slid out my computer, and set it on my desk to play some music. As I listened and danced, I pulled out my shorts, t-shirts, and various dresses, folding and hanging as needed. Finally, I flipped open my last suitcase, laying on top with my favorite pair of silk pajamas. I bought these a week ago as my only luxury item for college. As I picked them up, I caught sight of dark hair sticking out from under some summer dresses. Long, dark hair, just like my own. Instinctively, I grabbed my hair, thinking some had fallen out, but it was all there. Unwilling to touch the hair, I used a clothes hanger to move aside the dresses that covered whatever was attached to the hair. When I did, there was Samantha in her traveling outfit, a light blue velvet sweatsuit. I pulled out my phone and texted my mom. Did you put Samantha in my suitcase? Immediately she responded, No. That old doll? Yes. Can you ask Dad if he put her in? There was a pause, and then, he says he doesn't even remember you had a doll named Samantha. I put my phone in my back jeans pocket, used the clothes hanger to hook Samantha's eye, and lifted her out of the suitcase. It was then that my roommate and old childhood friend, Lisa, walked in and held up her hands. Why did you bring that doll? Your brother burned. I just shook my head. I didn't. I choked out. I pushed past Lisa and headed down the hall with Samantha hanging heavily from the hook until I reached the garbage chute. I shoved her in and used the clothes hanger to prod her and make sure she went down before I turned and headed back to my room. The following morning, classes hadn't started yet, so I was still organizing my room and making my bed. I stepped to the end of the mattress, lifted my comforter, and laying underneath was a charred little white doll hand. Just a hand, broken off at the wrist. Nothing else. Must have broken off yesterday, I muttered to myself. I used a sock to pick up the hand and throw it in the trash can. Then I continued making the bed, but as I pulled the comforter straight, there was the rest of Samantha. She looked rough, like she had to fight a fire to return to my room. Her burns had spread and she'd lost her nose. Her light blue traveling clothes were singed. I didn't want to touch her, but I didn't want to take my eyes off her. I picked up my phone and called my roommate Lisa, while stepping away from Samantha like she might overhear the call. That doll's back, I whispered. Well, that's one of the scarier ways to start a phone call, she laughed, and then her brain seemed to catch up with the situation, and she said, Wait, what? The one you threw out yesterday? You saw me throw her away, right? Well, I just saw you walk out of the room with her, but you said you were throwing her away. I bit my lip and glanced down at Samantha. Lisa, I tossed her head first down the garbage chute. I stopped, stood up straighter, and said in a lower voice, I need you to tell me right now if you're playing a joke on me. It was like I could hear the gears turning in my friend's head as she stayed silent. At last she spoke. I'm not playing a joke on you. I swear it. You're sure you didn't regret getting rid of her and go get her out of the trash? What? Yes! If I forgot doing that, there's a whole different mental problem. Can you just come home? I'll get us pizza. As I hung up, I heard a crash. It was my computer. I had placed it squarely on the desk, inches away from the edge. There was no reason it should have fallen. I lifted it up. The fall had cracked the screen and popped a few keys out. Hello? I called. Is someone there? I couldn't see anyone in my room except that doll. Still not touching her, I used the damaged computer and pushed Samantha into a suitcase, zipped it tight, locked it, and then put my heaviest class books on top of it and shoved it under the bed. That night, Lisa and I gorged ourselves on pizza and wine before we fell asleep in our respective beds. I awoke sneezing and pushed my hair out of my face. There were all these little hairs all over my nose and lips. But we didn't have any animals in our dorm. I ran a hand through my hair. Long strands of beautiful brown hair clung between my fingers. Frantically, I put both my hands on my head. On half of my head, my fingers ran over sheared hair, only half an inch long, while the rest remained as it was. Lisa! I screamed, and she jolted awake, sleepily glanced at me, and then sat up straight. Why did you do that to your hair? I didn't, I shouted, and desperately wanted to accuse Lisa of doing this, but her puzzled expression convinced me it wasn't her. I ran to the bathroom. I've always had long hair, sometimes even down to my waist, but now I look just like Samantha. I gripped onto the sink and blinked. Who did this to me? I called the police and reported the incident, but since no one was there, they couldn't do much. After the police left, I found Samantha sitting on my desk with tears streaming down her face. No way, I thought. I turned to Lisa. Can I sound crazy for a second? Go for it, she answered. I think we have to burn Samantha. My friend glanced to the side and then back to me and nodded. Sure, whatever you need to do, she answered and rubbed my back. I entered our bedroom and grabbed Samantha, who was now sitting upright, even though I swear I had left her laying down. I didn't care anymore. I was going to get rid of her once and for all. We drove out to a park, found a fire pit, and gathered kindling and sticks. Then I lit a match. As the flames roared, I tossed Samantha in and pulled out my hand sanitizer to douse myself. A high-pitched sound escaped as she burned, and I swear she was screaming. Reading my mind, Lisa said, "That's just water escaping." Why would she have water in her? I answered, but we both stayed silent after that and stared into the flames. The next morning I awoke, and there was Samantha, sitting on my desk, next to my still damaged computer. She was whole and unburnt, her long hair restored, and her light blue traveling suit fresh and clean. Pinned to her shirt was a note that said, "Best friends forever." My eyes continued across the room until they reached Lisa's bed. Surrounded by a pool of blood was my real best friend, laying on her back with her throat slit and her eyes staring sightless at the ceiling. Thank you so much for listening. If you enjoyed the story, hit that like and subscribe, or check out my Patreon in the About section. See you in the next one.